Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Aneta Kuzma, a well-being coach, executive coach, podcast host, and the founder of the Adelian Koosma Group. After spending 25 years climbing the corporate ladder, Aneta experienced burnout and realized success meant very little without purpose and peace. Today, she helps people redefine success, overcome burnout, and live what she calls the width of their life. Aneta, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Sakani, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for our conversation.
All right. So yes, Aneta, thank you. And I want us to go back, right? So basically when you were much more younger, right? So take us back to your 20s. Who was Aneta before the corporate career and coaching journey?
Such a great question. Um, I was someone who was very excited to start life. I remember graduating from college and I wasn't sure exactly what I would do. I graduated in 94 and all I knew is that I wanted to go and backpack throughout Europe. I'd saved up enough money to get like a month-long train pass to backpack and some money for food. And I went with a friend of mine, and I was just very excited to experience the world and to travel and to spend some time in quiet reflection on what it was that I wanted to do. And I think, like many young people, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. All I knew was that I had this belief that it was all going to work out. I found my journal from that trip, and it was so interesting reading my words and hearing my voice from back then. And I was surprised at how I wasn't stressed or worried. I just was excited to be where I was in the moment. And I just wrote, I'll figure it out when I come back. And so I think I was much more
Hmm.
adventurous early on and not quite indoctrinated to a timeline that sometimes we believe that we have to have.
Exactly. Right. Well, because, most people, especially young adults today, we feel like we need to have it all figured out, right? But
Yeah.
it's not possible to, figure everything out in your 20s, basically. So, like you said, yes, was for adventure. I mean, you
Mm.
didn't follow the timeline the way people do set timeline for themselves. So I think I really recommend that, actually.
And it was so
All
interesting,
right.
Sakani, because during that trip, it was actually a couple of days towards the end of the trip, my friend Anne, who I went backpacking with, we stopped in a tiny village where her parents were in France, and I had breakfast with them. And her mom asked me, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, I really don't know. I'm going to start applying for jobs. And here's what I love. I love people. I love languages. I love culture.
Mm.
And she said, Oh, well, I teach French at Berlitz Language Center. And at the time, Berlitz was the largest language center in the world. There were no Duolingo app or any of these other things at the time. And she made an introduction to the director in Cleveland. And so when I came back, I had the interview and I got the job. And so it was one of those situations where I look back and realize that um, had I been stressed and decided not to travel, I wouldn't have gotten my first job because it was actually during that trip through an introduction that I was able to get an interview. So it was a funny little reflection as I remembered back how I got my first job.
Wow. All right. So actually, I'd say thank you for, sharing your wonderful story with us. One can learn, one or two from your story, actually. And another thing I would love for us to touch on is your career, right? And let's say purpose. So you spent 25 years in the corporate world. What first, made you realize that something was missing?
Yeah, I think it was when I went back to school to get my master's in business administration. We had an assignment in one of our classes, and we were asked to write a 20-page paper on the vision that we have for the rest of our life. And I will tell you that that was terrifying because
Mm,
I'd never spent that much time thinking through what do I want to do next. And so I was getting my graduate degree, I think when I was 38, and I graduated at 40. So I was later in life, married, had children, was already working in corporate for many years at this point. And it was during that assignment when I had to do some deep soul reflection that I knew that I didn't want to continue to stay in banking specifically, but that I probably wanted to start looking at some other options. And so that was the first, I think, inkling that, hey, maybe there's something different here. And it gave me permission to start asking myself deeper questions. Now, after that, I stayed, I think, another 7 years in corporate. So, but it planted the seeds for me then to start exploring some more.
mm. Wow. Oh, all right. I think, everyone should actually ask themselves that question.
Hmm.
What do you plan to do in the next 5 years, right? What do you hope to achieve? Where would you want to be in the next 5 years? And it'll just give you that realization, honestly. So, another thing is that burnout, it affects so many young professionals today. So why do you think it's becoming so common?
Yeah, I think burnout for many reasons. One is we have introduced so much technology into our life, and our brains have not adapted to actually being able to take in all of the data and all the information that we're consuming. We are consuming more than ever before. And so I think that's one thing. Second, I think that we've grown very used to ignoring signals that our body is sending to us. If we are tired, we'll just drink more caffeine. If we are tired, we won't take a nap. We'll just push through. If something hurts, you could just ignore it or take something to kill the pain or whatever it is. I think that we ignore the signals and the wisdom of the body. And when we do that over a large period of time, burnout becomes a very slippery slope. It becomes small, it starts off as small signals, and over time, it can really surprising. And we start developing some physical symptoms, some mental health challenges, and and then at that point, we find ourselves in a situation where we have to respond because choosing not to is no longer an option.
Like, apart from young professionals, burnout is also, seen amongst high achievers, right? So I remember speaking with a guest that said instead of working towards becoming a high achiever, how about you work towards becoming a balanced achiever?
Mm.
Right? Whereas
Mhm.
every aspect in your life is okay, and then work is fine. Also, you balance those things, and you would see that you'll be able to overcome burnout, right? So you need to focus more on your health, right? And also, you could balance work with it, but you also need to prioritize your health as well, right? So that's like the whole concept of, a balanced achiever. Right. So another thing I would like to ask is that how can someone, recognize the difference between, let's say, healthy ambition and unhealthy hustle?
Healthy ambition, and what was the I think second thing? Unhealthy.
Uh, Unhealthy hustle.
Mm. Unhealthy hustle. Yeah. I think it comes down to the word you said before, which was balance. And for
Mm,
me, I like to think about alignment. And alignment for me creates the balance. It means that we make choices and we say yes to things that align to the values of our life. And so if we are in hustle mode, we may find ourselves saying yes and having an unhealthy ambition because the things that we're looking for maybe are external validation, titles, promotion, more money, whatever it may be, recognition, etc. But I think that having a healthy ambition is really starting with what are the values and what are the things that are most important in your life? And then are you making choices every day that align to those values? And when we do, we create the balance, we create more joy, we create more satisfaction because it's very internally focused, not just externally focused.
Hmm. Wow. Oh, all right. So thank you, Aneta, for that beautiful one, I would say. And I would like to ask, right, talking about, healthy ambition. I know you mentioned some already, but what do you think are like the practical ways, or should I say daily habits one can begin to, build in themselves, right? To help with healthy ambition, basically.
Yeah, it's such a great question, Sakani. I think the first thing I ask my clients, and it's what I do for myself too, is, what are your top 5 values? What are the things that are most important to you? And then making sure that on your calendar that you have those things listed. So if it's your family, making sure that you have time blocked off to spend time with your family, to come home for dinner, to do things together. If it's to build relationships with your friends, making sure you've got times on the calendar where you're talking to your friends or spending time with them. If it's your health, it's, making sure that every day you have time to move your body, to focus in on relaxing your mind, dealing with your emotions. So it really starts with the values, and then it's making sure that you've got time and routines and rituals around honoring those things. And so when I work with clients to create healthy routines that I think aligns to your question, I always say, how are you taking care of yourself mentally,
Mm,
physically, emotionally, and spiritually? Because we can't compartmentalize our needs. It's important to look at ourselves as a whole being. And so when we do that, we can create routines that are supportive for us. The my routine may not be one that is aligned with your values, and so I wouldn't say do what I do. I think that's been
mm,
part of the challenge with a lot of books and everything else. So, there's a lot of advice that says wake up at 5 a.m. If you're a morning person, that works. If you're not sleeping, I'd say start with your sleep. So there are some
mm,
basic things. I think sleep is very important, making sure that we get the amount of sleep that we need. Now, science tells us that the average person needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Many of us are
mm.
not getting great sleep. So, just tracking your sleep and starting to create some healthy habits around that will make it easier to wake up in the morning feeling refreshed, feeling renewed, allowing our mind to take a break and to really do what it needs to do. And then it's focusing in on what could you do for yourself mentally. Maybe that's taking a nice break, going outside, moving the body, plus being in nature. Those are the things I love to do. I like to meditate, to pray, to journal, and when it's nice being able to do it outside. If not, I have spaces inside my home to do it. But it's really creating and carving out time and space to do the things that not only do I feel like I have to do, but they're actually things that I love to do, that I enjoy doing because I know they feel so good. And they're things that they just really bring me joy. They make me happy.
Oh, wow. All right. So, it's about making decisions, daily decisions that aligns with your value,
Mhm.
both mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, right?
Yes.
Like you
Mhm.
mentioned earlier. All right. So another thing is that you often talk about living the width of your life, right? So what does that mean in practical terms?
For me, it means that it's a reminder that we have this one life that we get to live. And many times people make goals based on a future date. We say, oh, when I
Mm,
get to retire, or when I have this much money, or
mm,
when my kids graduate, or when we move to the new house, and it's always a future date. And so that's like looking at life from a length perspective, in the future. But for me, living the width is every single day saying, this is my life. This is it. This is all that I know. Tomorrow is not promised. How do I enjoy today fully? How do I enjoy it from width to width? And so it's really slowing down to appreciate every single day and then choosing with intention how you get to spend that day.
mm. All right. Personally, I would like to say I'm learning a lot, right? Oh, okay. So these are habits I think I'm going to, adopt to live a more peaceful and happier life, actually. Because, when you do these things, you tend to become more happy with life
Yeah.
and you become healthy too. This just helps with all areas of your life, right? So, yes,
Yes.
right. Um, Okay, so yes, thank you, Aneta. And another thing, right, I would like to ask, how have practices like meditation, yoga, and breath work changed your own life?
Yeah, I started doing yoga in my 20s, so I've been doing it for a very long time. And I remember
Mm,
that I really wanted something that was going to slow me down because my nature actually is to move quickly, to do a lot.
mm,
That's my natural nature, and I knew I needed to slow down. And yoga, and then the breath work, and then the meditation through my studying and going deeper, it allowed me to slow down. It allowed me to get more comfortable being with myself, hearing my thoughts, and also connecting my breath and my body and just to this very present moment. And it felt like, of all physical activity I'd ever done, this was the first one that really connected with me mentally, physically, emotionally, and
mm,
spiritually. Like I really felt like I was connecting to myself in a much deeper level. And I would just get lost in time. And I didn't actually go to any yoga classes in person for many years. I had an at-home practice because when I was a young mom raising my kids and, getting ready for work, I worked full time as well. My mother was able to babysit, which was wonderful. I'd wake up at 4:30 in the morning and just practice yoga on my kitchen floor and the mat before I would go to work, and because it was a lot. And so for me, it really kept me grounded. It kept me sane. It kept me calm through a very difficult time. And it also was so flexible that I could do it anywhere. And I did. And so the more I learned and the more I practiced, the more I wanted to learn about meditation because we all have very active minds and we always have lots of thoughts. And I knew I needed some extra support with that. So meditation also allowed me to just be present and to focus in on just noticing whatever was coming up in my thoughts and just inviting them away. And it's been something that I've enjoyed for many decades now.
mm. Wow. All right, meditation, yoga, and breath work. Another thing, personally, I think is very, really good. I don't know if you do this, is journaling,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes.
I think it's amazing, honestly. It just helps you sit with your thoughts,
Yeah.
articulate your thoughts, right? And, just help you get on with life, basically. And yeah, those are things I could recommend personally. And yes, thank you, Aneta. And
Yeah, I love to journal. To answer your question, it was something I've done since I was a young child, and it always felt like a great way to make sense of what I was thinking. And So I have journals upon journals. And like I mentioned before, having a journal while I was traveling was just such a great gift to be able to come back to it and remember. And when I started my own business, I started writing every day, and and it really has been helpful going back and being able to read and to see what I was thinking. Many of those journal entries I've used for both of my books, and so it really is such a beautiful practice and one that I absolutely enjoy.
Wow. All right. I would like to say, I think you have a cool 20s. I mean, your 20s was cool, actually.
Thank you.
All right. So, not many people do have, such cool 20s. So thank you for sharing your wonderful 20s with us, your story about your 20s. And I think most listener right now should actually do adopt that. The first one is at being adventurous, right? It helps you, honestly, you get to learn a lot, right? And
Hmm.
another thing is uh and I had a guest one time that said, in your 20s, you should be willing to try out new things. Do not, say, no, I
Hmm.
don't think this works. Try out new things. You never can tell. And yes, talking about 20s, right? Finally, I just want you to give, a piece of advice to the younglings, basically the young adults, right?
Hmm.
Because a lot of us today, we feel overwhelmed, anxious, and just constantly thinking about the future. Everybody wants to, figure life out. So, what advice would you give to people in their 20s trying to just, navigate life and build something meaningful?
Yeah, so I have two adult daughters, and I'm going to share advice I also share with them. I don't think that life is an intellectual exercise. I know it's not, it's an experiential one. And I see many people, but also young adults, thinking that they have to think their way to their next best decision and that you have to have things so figured out or you have to hit certain goals by a certain time. And I just remember that so much of my life and so many of the most amazing things that happened were not things that I'd planned for. And so I think that if we really think about life as being this great adventure, it's so good to have goals and it's so good to know long term where you want to go. Do you want a family? Do you want to travel? Where do you want to live? Some of these big questions. What industry is interesting to you? Of course, we want to know those things. We need some sort of direction, but allow yourself to just say yes to things that you feel drawn to, even if you don't know why. So many of my adventures at work and at life were because I just trusted myself enough to say yes or no to things that felt either right or wrong. And in that process, so many other blessings unfolded. And I never expected to live in New York City. But the night I came back from that trip backpacking, I met my husband, my future husband. And he was from New York, and we were engaged 4 months later. None of that was in the cards. I didn't
Wow.
plan any of that. But it was, I just came back and I was so open, and it was just interesting the way it all unfolded. And you look back and you're like, my plane wasn't supposed to land until much later, in which I never would have met him then that evening. And so there were all these other things that happened. And through so much of life, it works out that way where you can't even make things up or plan for it. So if we have a good sense of, hey, I think this is where I want to go long term, but you allow yourself to be open to what the universe or God puts in front of you, it's going to be a much more interesting life. You're probably going to suffer a lot less because you're not going to overthink it or worry so much. And you get to have a lot more fun. I think that we're supposed to enjoy ourselves, especially in our 20s. Have a good time, enjoy yourself, allow yourself to say yes to things that feel good. And of course, within, boundaries and values and all those things. But we don't have to stress ourselves out trying to overthink it because you're never going to be able to think your way into all of it anyway.
Wow. All right. Thank you for that amazing piece of advice, honestly. Thank you. And like I said earlier, I think this has been really insightful and deeply grounding also. And it is something I think personally I'm going to adopt, especially when you said, just, live life. You don't have to always
Yes.
anticipate, right? Like you said, it makes life a lot easier, honestly, and less painful. So just live life, basically.
Yeah, and also I do think that life is a little bit like a GPS. If you make a turn and you realize that maybe it wasn't the right one or it took you off course, um, there will be many other doors that open. And so there are very few decisions. When we think about all the things we worry about, there are very few decisions that actually are life or death or that are so significant. Many of the things that we worry about are really not that significant in the grand scheme of life.
Right, exactly. And it reminds me of this saying, we suffer more in our head, right, than we do in reality. Honestly. Our
Yes,
mind,
it's so true.
right. So, our mind makes us feel like there's a lot going on. We have to overthink everything, but it's really not that serious, honestly. It really
No.
isn't.
No,
Oh,
and
God.
also the other thing too is, life is if you watch a movie or you're reading a book and you're not paying attention, you can go and rewind it, or you could read the chapter again. But life isn't like that. And so learning to be so present to where you are right now, and not trying to rush ahead is also something I'd like to leave your audience with, because you don't get to go back to it. And once you've missed that moment, you can't get it back.
All right. Like you said, being more present, right? Being more present in
Yes.
the right, focusing on the now because you can't go back basically. So it's better you focus on the now, enjoy every single moment. So when you look back, you feel happy rather than always wishing you could go back in time, basically. So yes, thank you, Aneta. I think this has been really, really insightful, and it brings me to the final segment of my podcast. I call it the rapid fire segment. You could either answer with, a word or a phrase, starting now. So would you prefer sunrise or sunset?
Oh, sunrise. I love both. They're so beautiful, but sunrise because you have the whole day ahead.
Wow. Okay. So what is one daily habit you never skip?
Mm. You know, um, I don't know if there's something I never skip, but I will say most mornings, my husband and I will we'll have our coffee and then we'll read from different books, things that are inspiring or scripture, and we'll do a little short breath work, and then we'll pray over our family. And that's become a really beautiful ritual for us, and it's a great way to start the day. And then I do my own practices of meditation, of journaling, of walking outside. It doesn't matter if it's cold or really hot. You'll Most days, 9 out of 10 days, you'll find me walking outside because I find it so grounding. So those are some of the things that I do most mornings.
All right. Wow. Okay. So what is a book that changed your perspective?
A book. It might sound cliche, but um, I have read The Alchemist so many times. I have read that book so many times throughout my life, and I think each time I read it, I have a new perspective. It's short, but the lesson is so beautiful that everything that we seek, the treasure that we seek, is already within us. And I just think that it's a beautiful reminder that you can go search the world and or search a lot of external things for what we think that we need and that we want. And it's right within us. That's why, if you're unhappy and you travel, you're still taking yourself with you. Maybe the location's a little bit different, but the character is still you. So I would say that book, The Alchemist, and it's probably time I read it again. I was just thinking about that.
Wow. Okay, The Alchemist. What's the author's name?
Paulo Coelho,
Oh,
Coehlf. Yeah.
oh, okay. All right. And finally, in one word, what does fulfillment mean to you?
What does what? Sorry.
Fulfillment, what does it mean to you?
Oh, fulfillment. It's such a great question. Fulfillment for me is like being full of life. It's being content in all circumstances. It's being thankful and grateful, not because of something that has happened, but just because you're alive and you can recognize all your blessings that are already here. And so it's fulfillment, I think, is like contentment and gratitude. I think it's a choice. I don't think that it's dependent on things that happen to us. I think it's a choice in terms of how we choose to live our life.
Hmm. Wow. Ooh, all right. So yes, thank you, Aneta. And finally, before you go, where can listeners get to, learn more about you and also connect with you?
Oh, I'd love it. I would say come to my website first, AnetaKuzma.com, Anetakuzma.com, and you'll find all my social handles. You'll find links to my books, to my podcast, and you can reach out to me. I would love for folks to do so. I offer free 30-minute conversations if anyone wants an alignment call. I have a lot of free giveaways too, so I would love for your audience to reach out.
Hmm. All right, okay. I'm gonna put the link in the show notes actually, so it's easily accessible for listeners. And to my
Thank you.
listeners, I want to say thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Tekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Once again, thank you, Aneta. This has been amazing, and do you have a wonderful day ahead of you?
Thank you so much, Sakani. I appreciate it.
All right.